Welcome to another edition of the Black Wealth Experience podcast. And one of the things that I get so excited about is when I have guests on who really can talk about some of the things, some of the issues that plague our finances, that plague our money. And it's not because money is this thing that's this, I don't get it. It's out there. It's there. It's because we don't understand how to utilize it. We don't understand what a gift it is. Money in itself is just, as I say often, is just pieces of paper that we assign value to. But the value that we assign to it means so much in our everyday life. And so people will tell me all the time, well, money's not that important. And money isn't everything, Brian. Why do you keep saying money is everything? And the issue is money is not everything. And you are right. You are correct. It's not. But it's kind of up there with oxygen, because it's something that we have to have every day to transact and have options and do business. And we spend it every second of the day. As you think about like electricity, like if you have a place and you're paying for electricity and your lights are on, that means you're spending money every second of every day, all day long. And we spend so much time doing a whole bunch of, the spending. The other thing is when you don't have it, when I say it's up there with oxygen, right? I heard this the other day. If you don't have it, it feels like you can't breathe. And so, so it is important in our lives because it's a way that we barter and transact. And so understanding money becomes so vitally important because without it, we can't do the things that we want to do. And, I tell you guys often that my prayer is that, that I'm able to do what God put me on this earth to do in a way that serves him and pleases him and serves others. And so I want to make sure that I'm serving people. Well, in order to serve people the way that I would love to be able to do it, it takes money. And so we don't grow up, it's like anything else. We don't grow up understanding how money works. And there's many times that when we're doing money and we're talking about money that we don't get the financial education, especially in our culture, in our schools, that we don't get to understand or get these financial educations because sometimes I think in America, we kind of expect it to be part of the school system, or we expect it. Let me take that back. We don't expect it to be in the school system. We expect that our parents and our grandparents and our communities teach us about money. The problem is if my dad or my grandpa or my aunts and uncles didn't understand how money works, they didn't pass that on to me. And so now I'm trying to figure out, and then we get math in our school systems, which is great, but we don't get this is when you get your first bank account. This is when you get your first thing. And so today I have Tanya Taylor on, CPA. That those letters shouldn't scare you. That just means she understands money and went to school to learn about it. She has an MBA. Those letters shouldn't scare you because those letters mean that she studied how this thing called money works. And that's why I'm so excited, because I hope you get the opportunity to take notes. If you don't have a piece of paper out, my suggestion is get one. Take some notes. This is recorded, obviously, so you will be able to stop, pause, write down, and then we're even going to give an opportunity for you to be able to contact her at the end here. So, Tanya, thank you for being on today. Thank you for being willing. She's out of New York, which is, we were just talking about before the show, how busy it is there. Lots of people, but lots of opportunity to help people as well. And so thank you for being on. Thank you for being willing to share with us. And then please tell us a little bit about you and your story as we progress through this.
Yeah, I'm delighted to be here. So thank you for having me as well. And so my story essentially is that, I grew up in Jamaica, so I'm not originally from New York, and grew up very poor, poor to the point where some days we didn't know if we were going to have dinner, kind of poor. And then I had the opportunity to come to America. I graduated high school at 16, which is pretty normal in Jamaica. And my parents couldn't send me on to higher education, but I did get this great opportunity where I could come to live in America. Didn't know who I was going to come to live with, but they found some family friends, sent me here. So I came alone. I had $100, was undocumented. And being in Jamaica and hearing about America, it was, you think people live really well. It's like land of milk and honey, basically. Except that when I came here, what I saw was most of the people were living in poverty, living paycheck to paycheck, having multiple jobs. And that was shocking for me because I thought that I would come here and I would be able to work and just have this really great life and help my family. But I also, even though I was 16, I kind of took a step back and I said, how do I want to see my life in the future? And how the fact that I had this opportunity, how do I help my family out of poverty? And so at that 16 years old, I set these crazy goals. When I look back now at the goals, I thought, wow, I was really in maybe like another space and time to even think that it was possible. But I did think it was possible. And so went to college, and by the time I was 25, I had graduated college. I got my bachelor's and had a couple of job offers, went to work for Deloitte, one of the big five accounting firm. I had purchased a house about 6 months before I graduated college, and I'd started a small business. And then once I hit 25, then I had these other wild goals. One was to hit $1 million by the time I was 45 and leave corporate America. And if I have children, at the time I didn't even have a boyfriend, but I said, if I have children, I want to be able to fully save for them for college. And even though I had a career and I knew the earning potential of that career was great, I didn't feel like the career by itself would be able to allow me to achieve these goals that I had. So on a vacation with a group of friends, I was like, hey guys, let's decide to start investing in the stock market. And everybody was on board. Like none of us knew anything about investing in the stock market, by the way. But we went and we learned a ton about how to set up a business, how to invest in the stock market, and then just presented it. Like we created a book and got a group of colleagues and say, hey, let's start investing so we could build wealth. Everybody joined on board. I ran that investment club for about 6 years. After that, started a children's financial education club as well, which I ran for a couple of years. And then I did hit my goal, not at 45, but at 48. I was able to hit that $1 million in my retirement, also save for my children for college, and then had a car accident as I was planning to leave corporate America. And
Wow.
it made me realize how you can have all these things that you put in place, but how easily a lot of that could just fall. We could get more into that in the conversation. But yeah, like 3 years ago, I had the car accident and I'm still recovering from that too. But also have my financial coaching business where I really always felt that the more I learned about personal finance, the more I should teach. So I spent over 20 years just volunteering, teaching people about personal finance, and then turned it into a business 3 years ago, like literally right before I had the car accident.
Wow. Well, sorry about the car accident. That is no fun at all. And you think the best laid plans, right? And then
Yeah.
something jumps into your plans
Yeah.
and stops it. One of the things that you talked about in your story that I think is really, really important is you talked about when you first came and seeing the people that were living paycheck to paycheck. And you think of America, you think of land of milk and honey, everybody's doing well, everybody's able to do stuff. Why is it, do you think, and after now all these years being in money, that so many people end up living paycheck to paycheck with all this opportunity?
Honestly, I think a lot of it is mindset. It's a story that we learn when we're younger. Um, a lot of times you hear money is the root of all evil. I still hear that now, and it's not. And even you, as you were talking about money just now, like money is not important. Why isn't it important? I agree with you that it's like oxygen because when we're broke, we are like we can't breathe. And
We are suffocating, yeah.
I think that because our mindset is such that we think in scarcity, um, it doesn't allow us to open ourselves up to the opportunities that are out there and to think outside of our square boxes. Because there's this saying that when you look at your group of friends, it could tell sort of like who you are, who you're going to be.
Mm-hmm.
And if we
Yeah.
if we stay within our same little city, just use that as an example, like if we stay on the same block, if we stay with the same group of people, and we don't expand out our thoughts or we don't venture out to find out, okay, what's outside of this block, then we never really it's what's in our head, right? Like using that block as an example of what's in our head. If we learned that money is scarce, if we learned that, okay, I got to just keep going to work and I got to pay the bills, I can't take risk, I can't do this, then all we're going to do if we don't step outside there and think, maybe there's something different, we're just going to keep going. And we're never going to see the opportunity. The opportunity could be right in front of our eyes, and we're never going to see it because we're laser focused on, I got these bills to pay. I got this job. I don't want to lose this job. I just got to keep going, even though technically we can't pay the bills because we're really struggling. And I think that when we shift that mindset, that's when the whole world will open up for us.
Absolutely. We talk about scarcity a lot, or you talk about, you kind of mentioned it, that there's this belief that there isn't enough, that I guess the beautiful part about the society we live in and capitalism is that we have the sky's the limit of what we can achieve. The downside of it is that we kind of believe there's a finite amount of whatever it is. Our resources are so limited that if I get something, you can't have it.
Yeah.
Or if you have it, I can't have it. And we kind of live like, and even, if we think of some people who own companies or people who employ people, like the greed that comes in there that says, well, I have to have this. If I make $1 million, that means I can only pay this much because then I can only make $1 million. How do we combat that where, we keep figuring out that it's not finite when there's something, that a resource that is depleted because of our ingenuity, because of our ability as humans to figure things out. We take that resource and we figure out something else that'll work. For instance, our oil, or we're going to run out of oil. We're going to run out of oil. Well, if we do, we'll find some other way to create energy, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, solar or wind or whatever it is. Before it was well blubber, right? We had all these wells that was the only way we could use lamp oil for us to light up our cities. But you look at our cities now, there's no well blubber being used at all to light up any of our cities. And so, but there's just such a mentality which keeps people from achieving because of this scarcity mentality.
Yeah.
How do we break that?
It really comes down to shifting our mindset. Like one of the things that I do when I work with clients, right? They come into my program and they're like, I want to fix my credit. I want to get rid of my debt. I want to learn to invest. And even with that, when they're coming in, they're like, do you think I could do this? This is always the question that I get. Do you think I could really do this? And I'm always like, yes, you can. Trust me, you can. But the first thing I usually do with them is a mindset, this whole course on mindset for like a week, 2 weeks, maybe even 3 weeks, depending on how long they take. And my clients, usually when they come in, they'll say to me after the fact, they'll say, I just couldn't understand why you have us doing this mindset work, because I really just wanted to get going on my money. But they always come back and say, oh my God, this is the best piece of your program. Because after I do this, it makes me see the possibility of everything else that I could do. But if I didn't do this, I would think, okay, maybe I could fix my credit. Yes. And maybe I could get rid of my debt. But sort of, I couldn't see a big picture. And I'll give you a good example of that. Is this one client that I had who her husband got really sick. He ended up in the hospital and she didn't know what to do. She had no clue what was happening with their finances because he took care of it, and she got so scared. So she came to me, and I remember her going to me, oh my God, I don't think I could do this. She said it at least 100 times. She's like, I can't do this. And I was like, no, we're going to walk through this process. Within 7 months, this woman had paid off her debt. She was learning to invest. She had a budget. She was building an emergency fund. By the way, she had no pay increase doing all of this stuff. And she developed this confidence that she said to me, a while ago, my job had this posting, but I didn't qualify for it. So I didn't apply. And I really want to start making. So now all of a sudden she wants to make more money, because I think once you shift that mindset, it always works. It opens you up to other things. And she tells me about this job. And I said to her, well, is the job still there? She said, yes, the job posting is still there. I said to her, I've helped people with resumes through my whole career in corporate America. So I know how to do that. I've interviewed and recruited people. So even though that wasn't a part of my program, I said to her, let's do your resume and let's go interview for that job. She got that job. She got a 40% salary increase.
Wow.
She's taken vacation without going into debt. And since this has been a couple of years now, I spoke to her a couple of months ago. Since then, she's had 2 other jobs. all from, and she credits it. She always says, if I didn't do that mindset course, because I have my goals, I have them set goals, and I say, don't limit yourself. When she came into my program and I asked her, how much do you think you want to have in retirement? She said, like 40,000. And I thought to myself, oh my God. And then I said to her, well, what do you think you could do with 40,000 in retirement? But to not make her feel like it was overwhelming, I said to her, let's aim for like 100,000 or 200, just to not scare her off. But now all she
Hmm.
talks about is, I'm going to be the first millionaire in your program. Because by the time we got through this, she wasn't thinking about 40 or even 200,000. She's thinking, I could make any amount of money that I can. So I'm sure her next step is going to be, how do I generate other streams of income? And why I really strongly believe like this whole mindset work, it trumps anything else that you're going to do, because that set you on a path to success.
Oh, absolutely. And you think, because the way that we think about money, the way that folks come in, we hear so much about credit, right? Because that's how corporations and our corporate world run our world, right? Like, credit is everything. If you don't have credit, then you're nothing.
Yeah.
And then as soon as we get into a position that we don't have good credit. Like when I first went to college, they had these tables out there when I walked down there,
Yep.
and everybody wanted to give me
Yeah.
money. And I went to, this is before the internet. This is before you could learn stuff. I'm dating myself a little bit, but in the '80s, and so there was a company called Sears. And
Yeah.
Sears was giving out credit cards, right? And so I think they gave me a $300 limit on the credit card. I came on scholarship, and so I'm thinking this is part of the university, and so I get I get my Sears credit card, just kind of, hey, they're here and they're doing stuff. I'm naive. I'm 18 years old or whatever it is, trying to figure it out. My parents weren't spending a lot of time teaching me about money. And so my dorm, because I came in, did not look like some of the other kids' dorms. And so I wanted my dorm to look good. So I went to Sears and bought a lamp and a chair and some sheets or whatever it was that were there. And so I owe Sears $200, and the bill comes and says, and I'm like, but I haven't graduated. You're like, no, you have to pay this. You have to pay this every single month. And I'm like, well, you didn't tell me that when you signed me up. I guess they assumed that I knew that I was going to get a bill. I probably should have known, but I didn't. And then I started out my life with bad credit, right? Because it was a long time before
Yeah.
I didn't have a job.
Yeah.
Why did they give me a credit card
Yeah.
when I didn't have a job?
Yeah.
And when I finally got a job at the school and that kind of stuff, then, I paid that off. But at the same time, then the mentality can be, without the right mindset that you just talked about, is, well, since I have bad credit, I'll never be able to have what life has to offer.
Yeah.
And that's simply not the case. But that's, it's this thing with debt that they just spend time and time and time showing you, you need to have, if you want stuff, we want to sell you stuff. But at the same time, we want you to use credit, because everywhere you go wants to try to give you a credit card.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So how do you help people circumvent this mindset that in this world we have to do everything through debt and credit?
Well, and I full disclosure, like, I had bad credit for most of my adult life. Unfortunately, it wasn't my doing. I co-signed on student loan for folks and some other loans, which was also a very bad idea. So I ended up being having bad credit to the point where once I applied for a job and I wasn't sure if I was going to get that job, because credit was very important. But one of the things that I say to people a lot is, especially these days, before it was a little bit more difficult, but now, even if you have bad credit, there are so many things that you can do to help to navigate increasing your credit score. It takes a while depending on the type of things that are on your credit report, but it's definitely doable. And there are many companies out there now that are looking beyond credit scores. And for people who come into me who has bad credit, that's one of the first things we start talking about. We also, depending on how aged their bad credit is, if there are things on their credit report where they could start negotiating with their debtors, yeah, then we start going through that process too. But my thing is always, do not stay stagnant because you have bad credit. We're going to work on the credit. We're going to work on the debt, and there are different things that we can go through to figure out what's the best way to manage that debt, right? And then we're going to look to see what else we can do, because when a client comes into me, I don't work on one piece in silo. I look at their whole picture. We talk about what their goals are long term. And so it's not a transactional thing. It's a long term view of what we're doing. And yes, your credit may take time to build up, but maybe here are some things that we can do in the meantime. And by the way, if you have bad credit and if you have a lot of debt, one of the first things that we're going to try to do is to curb that spending. Identify why you continue to spend the way you are and figure out how to stop that. And that comes to your budget. Most people don't have a budget. They have no idea what they're spending. They have no idea how much, not even how much they're bringing in. Some people don't really know how much you're bringing in. So we really spend time looking at that and figuring out, okay, what are your spending habits? What are your spending triggers? And try to work on that alongside fixing the credit over time and alongside managing the debt. But it's never I've never had a client coming to me, no matter how bad all their situation is, and we're not able to identify things that we can work on and put in place. The thing that I tell my clients a lot is, you if you stay stuck in this moment, then it's going to seem hopeless. If you put together a plan for the next 6 months, the next year, and these are the milestones that we expect to achieve over 6 months by taking these steps in between, then you can see a clearer picture, and then it doesn't feel so doom and gloom. Because the average person, if they're not seeking out help and they're stuck in this situation, they can't see a way out because they don't even know how to put a plan in place to to figure their way out, and so they get stuck and they do nothing.
Man, that's so good. One of the things you just brought up that it was going to be my next question is this whole thing called a budget. And you alluded to a lot of people don't have it. I was for a professor, teacher. I've taught elementary school, middle school, high school, university, for so many years. And my question has always been, why are we not teaching budgets in some form from kindergarten all the way through? Because it's the most important part about managing money. Money
Yeah.
is something we deal with every single day. And then we have so many people that don't have or understand why a budget is necessary. Is it because we want to just get people to spend their money, and that's what our society does? It's all about spend, 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 and then we don't think about how much. Okay, I just got to get a better job, so now I can afford this stuff and the lifestyle that I've just provided myself, which is so backwards. Like,
Yes.
this is what I
Yes.
have. This is what I can spend, but we do it backwards. We go, okay, this is the lifestyle I want. I'm going to start living this lifestyle. I'm going to buy this car, or I'm going to live in this apartment, or I'm going to buy these clothes. I'm going to do all these things, and then I'm going to go figure out how to make the income
Yeah.
to be able to do it.
Except that when you make the income, you spend more. But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, if you don't have a budget, right?
Yeah.
So how do we get first to help people, figure out how to do a budget, and then figure out, okay, what are my, I remember like the envelope,
Yeah.
idea where you put the money in the different
Yeah.
envelopes but how do we learn how to split that up? Like how much needs to go into savings? How much needs to go into investing? How much needs to go into, my lifestyle and spending? How much needs to go into my utility? Because that's what we need to kind of figure out first, right? Before we even do a budget,
Yes.
is what those allocations are. Maybe
Yes.
talk about that a little bit, what maybe,
Sure.
those allocations should be, or how do we begin to do this process?
Yeah, and I do want to say, yes, you're right about the budget, where it's like a stigma. When you hear budget, people get like, oh my God, budget. Oh no. Because the way society makes us view budget is like, there's this restriction, like you can't do anything because you're on a budget. And when I work with my clients, that's another thing. Again, we throw that out the door. The whole idea, we're talking about budget as an empowering tool. Because when you have this budget that's going to empower you, what it does is it's going to tell you, again, going back to that whole the mindset course where I have them lay their goals out, right? You're now going to be spending in alignment with your goals. And what I firmly believe in is paying yourself first. So that's one of the component of the budget that we always talk about. How do you pay yourself first? Another component of the budget that's really important to me, and it's really important for because I feel like that's what's going to keep people on their budget, is to identify something that you love that you never want to give up. And you're going to allocate some money towards that too. Because when you feel like I'm working hard and I love this, whatever this is, for me, it's travel, and I could budget for that, then all the other stuff that you spend on that you don't need to spend on, you will easily give those things up. Now, in
Mhm.
terms of how you allocate, there is like what's called a 50-30-20, which is sort of if somebody's starting out and they're like, I don't even know where to start. It's a very simple way. So the 50% is going to go to your necessities. You got your light bill, your mortgage, your utilities, all the things that you know you must pay. Those are the things that you're paying. The 30% is like the other stuff that you're going to need, day to day living. And then the 20% is like you're saving, if you want to, if you're paying your bills off or whatever the case is. So that's kind of how they break down that 50-30-20. Hard, it's not a hard 50 for your wants. It's just a guide for someone to start. Um, Everybody's situation is going to be different because if you're young and you're making $100,000, you should be saving more than 20%. Especially if you're living at home with your mom, with your parents, you should be saving a lot more than 20%. So that would not apply to you. You'd probably be putting 50% away if you're someone who's really looking towards the future and saying, I want to buy a house. I don't want to live with my parents anymore. And then you're saying, okay, I'm going to take this other 50% and I'm going to break it up here.
Mhm.
Uh, you always want what happens with most people is that if you get your paycheck and you're not automatically taking a portion out and put it into savings, you don't end up saving because you find that you have so much bills that you need to spend every dollar towards that bill. But when you develop that habit where you say, I'm going to take 20% off my income or whatever percent, and I'm going to put it away and not even think about it, it's going to automatically come out of my paycheck. The net amount that you get in your paycheck, you're going to make it work. And you're going to take that net amount and you're going to say, how do I start a budget? Take your last 3 months bank statement and your credit card bills, and you start looking at it and look at all of your expenses and write them down and start looking for patterns. If you notice that you're spending on Uber Eats, I had a client was spending $8,000 a year on Uber Eats. 8,000.
What?
8,000.
What?
If she didn't do that exercise, she would never know that she was spending 8,000. So suddenly she sees, I'm spending $8,000 a year on Uber Eats. This is insane. And I have no emergency fund. I'm not going to completely cut out Uber Eats, but I'm going to reduce it. And then I'm going to put the rest towards my emergency fund. So once you start seeing those patterns, then you start knowing what you're going to cut out. You take all your necessities and you put them down, and then you take the other stuff and you put them on on your spreadsheet too. And that's where you start your budgeting from. And at the end of the day, your income should be higher or should be the same as your expenses. So now that's where you're going to look and say, okay, savings, check. My thing that I really want to do, check. All of my rent, mortgage, all this stuff. And then the other pieces, that's where you're going to start making adjustments. And then you go further than that too. For example, if your utility bills, when you get your utility bills, it will tell you if you are using more than your neighbors or if
Mhm.
you're being efficient. If you're not being efficient, you figure out what in your house is causing you to not be efficient and you fix that. So now you can bring down your utility bill. You can also call your utility company, and if you're paying different amounts each month and that's going to totally throw your budget off whack, you say, hey, utility company, can I go on a level payment plan so I'm paying the same amount every month? That way it's very predictable to you how much is coming out of your paycheck every month, and it makes it more manageable for you to pay. And a lot of people don't realize that those are things that they can do. If you're paying crazy interest rate on your credit card, call your credit card company. If you were always paying on time, try to negotiate paying that down, a lower interest rate, or look at ways that you can maybe transfer your balance and pay that balance off within a certain time. So there's a lot of stuff that you can do which will help your budget so that you could have enough money. Because ultimately, if you don't have an emergency fund, you want to make sure that you are creating an emergency fund as you're going through that process and creating your budget.
Wow.
Yeah, I'll pause there.
No, that's good. There's so many questions that come in, and what brings to mind is how important the mindset
Oh
portion of this
God,
is,
yes.
because as I'm hearing you talk, and you say, okay, $8,000 a year on Uber Eats, we go, oh, that's so much money. But you think about it on a daily basis, that's like $20 a day. So it's not this incredible.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, okay. So I spend $15. I mean, you can spend $12 at McDonald's, right?
Yeah.
Just go
Yeah.
in there and then you spend the tip for Uber Eats. So
Yeah.
at $20 a day, if you're eating out every day, then that's
It
eight
adds up.
thousand dollars a year,
Mhm.
right? So you don't think that when it's $20 a day, because
Yeah.
the mindset doesn't realize
No.
that,
Yeah.
wow, I really could not eat out every single day, right?
Mhm.
I don't have to do that. But then that becomes, and if you're not budgeting for it, that becomes so. And then you start thinking about, all the things that you're saying that are in the budget. Like when I heard you say necessity, 50% on necessity. Well, we really have to determine what a necessity is,
Is
right?
yeah.
Do I need to eat out every day? A
Yeah.
necessity.
Yeah.
Do I need to buy this much clothes every single month? Or do I need to, go to the movies? Or do I need to, people who have habits with like alcohol and cigarettes and that kind of stuff, that stuff adds up so
Yes.
quickly.
Yes.
And then if you, like you said, if you don't have some kind of system, like I don't know any companies that will do direct deposit that won't split it up, right? Where I
Yeah.
can split up and have $20 going into savings or whatever it is. But if my mindset isn't there, if my mindset isn't right on, okay, these are so important to me. The one thing that you said that kind of got me when you talk about a young person thinking about the future, like that, that's oxymoron, right? Those two things don't go together. Like
Yeah.
what 25-year-old is thinking about what's my life going to be like at 45? I
Yeah.
got to live today. I got to do
Yeah.
this. And so
Yeah.
how do we ingrain that, or those things that we do, and create habits? And I think that's the other part of it is once you become and create a habit of savings and the right mindset, then this becomes easier, right?
Yeah. And that's why I also, you started out talking about this, how the expectations that our parents will teach us about money, and I really feel like it should be mandatory in the US. I think there are some states that's starting to require it, that young people start learning about money.
Mhm.
Because yes, if you've never been taught about money, you're 25, you're like, yeah, I'm balling, I'm this, I'm doing this, right? You're not thinking, oh, down the line I'm going to need money to retire, I got to start saving from now. Retirement is not something that you think about. And when I started my children's financial education club, those were the things I was thinking about. I just thought children are so young, and you could just teach them stuff and it will become a part of them. Let's see what this looks like if I do it, right? And I started that because my children were young at the time, and they got to learn about money. So I think they hate me for that now, but they don't know how much they know, because I'll hear them say stuff and I'm just like, it's very natural. When they talk about stuff, they don't realize that most people around them, even my age, can't talk like that because that's what they know. So I got this group of children and I taught them about money, right? I could only speak about the ones that I know that still applies the principle that I taught, which is my nephews who are now in their 20s, and my children. Every time we go out with my children, the first thing they did from the time they were young, in the supermarket, they would ask me what's their budget, and I would give them a budget, and they would have to pick it out. And my older daughter was always good with math since she was very young. She would calculate for herself and her younger sister. So they were getting the choice to get whatever you want, but it has to be within that budget. Started very young. We go to a restaurant, they sit down, mom wants my budget. And when I go with my friends and their children are there, the mom will go, yes, whatever Tanya says is a girl's budget is your budget too. So this whole idea for them is just like so normalized. And then now I look at my nephews, one is 23, one is 22. And one of them, he graduated college, he got a great job. The first thing that he did after he got his job was call me, oh, Auntie Tanya, I got a retirement plan. I want to, my company offers stocks, so I'm buying stocks in the company. And I taught them to invest. So they're investing. So they're always like, right now, my phone keeps blowing up on our chat. because they keep asking me about these different stocks because of how the stock market is performing. And I see that once you teach these children, maybe all of them won't get it, but I see my nephews doing it. And then my older daughter, who is now away in college at 19, um, she has her credit card. She knows to pay it on time. She set it up on auto pay. She got a job. She has a portion of her money, more than 20%, automatically going to her retirement account. And recently we sat down, we talked about investing in some companies. And she's like, I don't have the time. So I helped her to invest in some companies. And then I said, no, but I want you to go out and you and your cousins go out and start research a company and come back and tell me what you guys are going to buy. So right now they're in the process of researching a company. They're going to decide what they're going to buy. So I really believe that if we start young and we start teaching these young people, it will there's something that's going to automatically go off in their brain. That's when they get a job to say, yeah, I need to put some money away. Yeah, I need to invest. Yeah, and even my older nephew, he was like, he wanted to buy a house, and he ended up not buying the house because he says he doesn't know where his career is going to take him, and he doesn't want to be stuck with the house. That was the only reason he didn't buy it. He's 23. So it does work if we teach them, and this is something that should become mandatory at an early age so that these children could know to do these things. And, credit for them is just like, of course, I have to make sure that my credit is intact because it's important.
Yeah, and I think this is what wealthy families teach their kids all the way
Yes.
through. Like the
Yes.
things that you're doing in successful family. And the success leaves clues. We need to emulate some of it. We
Yes.
just haven't. It hasn't been shown to us a lot because we see our parents struggle, or we see our grandparents struggle, or we see like when you came to the country, you saw so many people that were paycheck to paycheck. What do you think, and I guess I'm dating myself again here, but the difference between like cash and this electronic world that we live in where we don't actually see our money. It's just numbers that are flowing back and forth. And, we have kids that say, well, we don't have any money for that, son. Well, just go use your magic card and put it into the machine, and then the machine will pop out whatever you need, or just use your card as if there's this unlimited. How do we how are you helping people with the mindset around, the electronic age? And, for our young folks, that's all they've ever seen.
Yeah.
Some of them haven't even hardly seen any real cash or money.
Correct.
But It's a whole different mindset of you can't see it. So how do you know how to use it?
It really goes back to the budget again, because if you have the budget, like, and your bank account, right? So I'm someone who never walks around with cash, but I need to know how much is in my bank account. And if I know I'm going to dinner and I need to know that, okay, I only have $50 budgeted for dinner, even though I don't have the cash, it's only $50. So for younger people, there are different apps that they could use to just kind of curtail. When my children were younger, the product that we use was Greenlight. I have no affiliation to Greenlight, but I tell parents about it all the time. And even for adults, they can use it too, but there are plenty of others. I could speak to Greenlight because I used it a lot. What I did, I gave my children a budget. And within the app, because they're young people, and my younger daughter loves Starbucks. So she would go to Starbucks every day if she could, and she'd just spend the money. So that was not okay with me. So you have your allowance, and 20% always goes to their savings because I wanted them to automatically know that that's something. Mm-hmm. And then 10% went to charity, was just something that I believed in. And so that's something that they did. The rest of it, there were limits. So for Starbucks, you only have X dollars a week. For Zara, you only have X dollars. And so if you want to go over that, you would have to come to me to ask me. So you had no other choice. And if you ran out of money, you don't get any more because you'd have to ask me. And the answer is no, because you have to learn the discipline. And I taught them to do a budget as well. Now they don't have Greenlight anymore. They got weaned off of it. So they have their bank account. But you will see these children sitting and planning out, I can't spend on this because I only have this in my bank account. And I think that the fact that they don't know physical money like we did does not preclude them from making sure that their bank account is balanced and their spending is within what they're supposed to. Because if the fundamentals of what we're teaching them is you must budget for this And if you go over it, your bank account is going to be overdrawn, and that's a whole other consequences to your bank account being overdrawn. Then they will consciously, hopefully, hopefully, consciously start saying, okay, I still have to spend what I have because if I go over, these are the consequences. So I think that it's true that psychologically, when we have the physical dollar, it makes a difference. But if we program our mind a certain way to develop a certain habit where we're just saying, this is the maximum that I have and I can't go over it, or else these are the consequences. Or for credit card, right? There isn't really any limit unless as a parent you give your child a card and say it's $200 maximum. You can't go over that. A similar idea as a parent teaching your child how to manage this, you can get alerts. So if they use that card and they go over a certain amount, you as a parent are going to be alerted. And at the end of the month or a certain period, you sit with them and you go through their credit card statement. So they start understanding, okay, this is what my credit card bill look like. This is the interest rate. I just had this conversation with my daughter this week because she's been using my credit card because she didn't do her job. And I said to her, my interest rate on that credit card is high. Every time you go and you buy something with it, if I don't pay it off in full, I have to pay interest on it. And so we had this whole conversation this weekend. I said, we're going to sit and talk about it in more detail so that she fully grasped what I mean by using the card and not letting me know. And then if it goes over 30 days, what that means. And she has a card of her own. So now she's going to also start paying the bill on her own so that she gets that whole experience and exposure as well.
Yeah, that's so good. And you're fighting a system that is designed, a financial system that is designed to try to take more money,
every
right?
dollar.
Because
Yes.
you have your fees, right? They have,
Yes.
oh, we'll go ahead and pay it for you, but you're going to pay it. Or you have your interest rates that you have to pay. You
Yes.
have, all these different things that are designed to say, oh, it's okay. We'll give you your paycheck early. Because I know you get paid every 2 weeks, but we're going to charge you in order to give it to you a day early. Well, the issue in the mindset part of it is, why do I need my money early? What is it that I've done or spent? If I'm spending every dollar that I bring in before it even comes in, then that's a mindset issue that we have to deal with on our spending, because there should not be a need for having to get your paycheck. I understand if I have an emergency fund, then whenever emergency came in, I don't need to spend it, right? If I had some savings, then I could go to my savings if emergency happened. But emergency doesn't happen every week, right? And so,
and it's costing you because they're taking out a portion of it to give it to you early. So you're actually getting less, but the mind doesn't click to that because all you're thinking is, I'm getting it early. Yeah.
Well, and then sometimes, and then if you start that cycle, no, I had to get it early I have to get it early the next time because I have to get it early, or the payday advances, or all these things that are designed. And so those have to be taught somehow that, you do. I love the app idea because that tells you this is how much money you have. I don't expect people to have the mindset of cash like we used to, like I had, because it was, hey, it's hard to get rid of that cash when you hand it to somebody. But I think it's the same way if I have an app, or, I know that there's these apps on subscriptions, like everybody wants to auto draft your account. Do you have thoughts on auto draft? And should everybody have access to auto draft every time you do something? Because that's the first thing they want to do. You go from buying a car to buying some groceries to buying whatever it is. Everybody wants to take your money first.
Yeah. So I actually prefer to set up my payment than to have the company auto draft from my account, because I don't know, I just feel like it gives me more leverage. If I want to, if I decide that I want to cut something off, I can stop it and just call, hey, I cut it off. A lot of times once it comes out of your account, it's harder to get it back in. So my preference is always, instead of them auto drafting it from my account, me setting up a bill pay to them. But different people have different preferences. The thing that I would say is, whichever one you choose, just make sure that you are staying on top of whatever you're paying for. Because let's say you started a subscription, Spotify or whatever, and you realize that over time you're not using it. if you go back and you look at your budget and you're like, oh, Spotify, oh, shoot, I haven't used that in like a couple months, cut it off, right? So even if it was on auto draft, you just give them a call. Hey, I would like to stop my Spotify, or you go online and you just stop your Spotify. So I think what's even more critical than whether you were paying, setting up auto draft, or they're taking it from your account, um, is to make sure that you're monitoring what you're paying for. I'm a fan of auto pay, bill pay, auto pay, whether they're taking it out or you're taking it out, because
Mhm.
everybody has this late payment fee, right? And a lot of times, if you don't have things set up automatically, you get a fee from the organization that's billing you, whether it's a credit card company or whatever. So that stops that. If you have to go and pay it, it's just sometimes you forget. I will forget. So I am for auto pay, but I think that monitoring is a part that's going to mitigate the risk of you continuing to pay for something that you're not using, or you've already paid something off and you don't even realize it. So you're kind of just putting money out there that you're not needing to pay.
Absolutely. No, I agree. I think having things automatically and knowing the dates and having a calendar then becomes important, or an app or something that says,
Yes.
okay, these are the days that things come out.
Yes.
And that's important. It's just so amazing how anybody you do business with today wants their
Oh,
money first,
because it's
right? And
easier for
so
them.
it's easier
It's
for
much
them.
easier.
They know they're going to get it,
Yeah.
and a lot of, especially, um, let's say this is a utility company, right? You don't know how much that's going to be every month because it changes every month,
Unless
and
you
so
ask for auto, go on a
unless
level
you ask for
payment
the
plan.
level payment,
Yeah.
which is really good.
Yeah.
But some of the ones that you do, they know that you will probably forget. Like,
Yeah.
you have the ability on your phone to add an app that costs $5 a month, and you haven't ever used the app, but
Yeah.
3 years later,
Yeah.
they're still pulling it out. I mean, I'm telling you this like I've never done it, right? We had not too long ago, we had a Ring doorbell thing on our
Mm.
front door, and so we switched over to a different security system. I didn't have the Ring on. I thought I had canceled it, but it wasn't. And so, 2 years later, I realized I've been paying $40
Right.
a month for a Ring
Wow.
doorbell that
That you
doesn't
weren't
that
you.
isn't
Yeah.
connected to
Yeah.
anything.
Yeah.
Well, Ring knew it wasn't connected to anything. They didn't send me a
They don't
notice that
care.
said,
Yeah, that's the thing. They don't care. They'll keep taking the money out.
yeah,
That's the whole reason why you gotta monitor. Yes.
yeah, and but and because it was on a credit card, and we got all these different things that are coming out, it's like, what is this $40
Yeah.
for? Because it doesn't say Ring doorbell on the credit card charge,
Right.
right? It just
It has
says,
a different name.
some other name of whatever
Yeah.
company that okay, I guess that's one of my subscriptions that I had.
Right.
So it's really important to take that time to really be able to budget.
Yeah.
Um, Wanted to just, at this point, because we this has been an amazing conversation. Thank you for
Thank
doing it.
you.
Is there anything that you wanted to talk about today that we haven't been able to talk about, or I didn't lead you in that direction, that you wanted to make sure everybody gets to know? And please make sure people know how to, get a hold of you and get some coaching and all that kind of stuff from you.
Sure. No, I think we covered a lot. A lot of it was the fundamentals of finance, right? And I think that the only other thing I would add is, emergency fund. Just whatever you're doing, however you're coming up with your budget, just really try to put together something for emergency so that you have it, that you're not always having to go for your credit card. But outside of that, no, I think this was a great conversation. There's so much more that I could cover. It would require a whole, probably another episode. But if someone wants to reach out to me, my website is growyourwealth10x.com. And I'm on LinkedIn at Tanya Taylor, CPA, MBA, and also Instagram at growyourwealth10x.com as well. So that's how you can reach me. And I do have two books you can pick up on Amazon. One is called Broke to Wealth. It's actually sitting right behind me here. This one is really just like if you're starting out learning personal finance and you grab this book, I give you homework in this book. It's very comprehensive. It has a ton of review on Amazon, really great reviews, just as how from teenagers to 65-year-olds. So, and I really wrote it with that in mind, that it could reach a broad audience. And I have another book, which I'm not sure where it is at this point, but It's called Limitations to Limitless, and it's we didn't touch on this in this talk, but again, probably would be for another episode. It's about like if you suffer from if you were to have a sudden disability, the process that you go through to ensure that you're securing yourself so that if you do have that disability, you're protected. But yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, so many really cool things to learn about. I'm so glad that you you were able to talk about your book. And yeah, I mean, that emergency fund is so important. Is there an amount based on your income and what's coming in that you should have an emergency fund? And like, what are some things to do? Because we can't usually just start out, okay, I just got an emergency fund today. How do I start funding that and make sure it's in place?
So it's gonna go back to the budget, right? So you gotta figure out how much money you can find in your budget to start that emergency fund. The rule of thumb is usually if you have none, start with $1,000 and just keep working up to 3 to 6 months. I would say 6 months at a minimum. That goes by really fast. And then just keep building it. Put it in a high yield savings account. Don't just leave it in a regular checking account where it's earning no interest.
Gotcha. So, as I'm thinking about it, you talked about the young person who's making $100,000 a year, which is, is probably becoming more popular in this day and age. So when we think about emergency fund, you're thinking about almost $25,000 should be in your emergency fund for 3 months. Right, because at $8,000.
Well, your emergency fund should be able to cover your necessities. So
okay.
if your necessities is not 25,000, it doesn't have to be 25,000. It would be just like, I need to be able to pay all these bills if something were to happen, and that's what you should gear it towards, and then build it up that way.
Okay, and then you said your book it talks about growing wealth. And so, and I want to have you come back and we can talk about what that means. Because today, like you said, we talked about the fundamentals, a basic budget, these are the things you need every single day to do stuff. Well, at some point, when we talk about that 20% that's saving, or that amount of money that now needs to grow, how do we increase that?
Right. Yeah.
And some of it is, those side hustles. Some of it is that you can't depend on your job, for everything. You need to really start thinking, what else can I do if I'm going to create wealth? Your boss isn't trying to create wealth for you.
Exactly.
He's just trying to create wealth for himself, right? That's why he hired you at the least amount he could to get you to do the job that he needs you to do, because he's trying to create wealth for himself. And so we have to think of ourselves, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, as, whether it's an entrepreneur or just think of ourselves as our own, our own boss, our own person who is trying to achieve this. And then what are the steps that we're going to do to be able to take, to be able to do that? Is that kind of right?
I mean, I would love to come back and kind of explore that and the different things that we can do, because it wouldn't take a minute to be able to do that. But it's definitely, you have to think of yourself almost like your own corporation and what your ultimate goal is, and what are the different pieces that you need to take, different steps that you need to take in order to get to that ultimate goal. And I think once you think about that piece, then we figure out what are all the layers that's going to get us there, whether it's investing, whether it's a side hustle, whether it's whatever else there is. But yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being part of the Black Wealth Experience, and being part of just talking about the fundamentals that folks need to have. And I encourage you, if you listen, to subscribe to more of these podcasts, but at the same time, contact Tanya. If you're not achieving the financial goals that you would like, or you think you don't understand money in the way that you need to, or you have this mindset that, I don't need money. Money isn't everything. Money is this bad thing, or money is evil, or those things that, and yet every day you're trying to make it. Those two things don't go together. You can't go to work every day trying to make money and then say it's this bad, evil thing. Your brain is split going, I'm hurting when I'm doing it. And so even if you just go, I would encourage everybody to go through the mindset portion of it if that's what they can go through, because it's so important to have a great mindset about money. So again, thank you for coming on. I can't wait to talk to you again. We will have you back. We'll have some more fun and we'll continue to talk. And for everybody else, you guys have an amazing, awesome, just incredible day.
Thanks again. Thanks so much.